Good evening, students. This is Professor Hannigan coming to you from Houston. I hope you're all doing well at California Baptist University in California and wherever you happen to be this evening. We're going to get started on week 5. You may already be started on week 5, but we're going to kind of talk about some of the things that you've been seeing and hopefully clarify some of the questions that you have about this critical case assignment that's coming up that serves in place of your final. Hope you're not too nervous about it. It's nothing to get nervous about. It's a little bit of more of the same writing that you've been doing, the same sort of projects that you've been doing, that just utilizes all of the information that you've been learning and putting together. But before we get started on that, wow, as I was looking through the assignments for this week, I noticed that, or this past week actually, the assignments that you turned in for week 4, I recognized that I'll be able to read a lot of your input about Starbucks. And interestingly enough, this evening on my husband and I had dinner out, and on our way home, he was talking about Starbucks here in Houston. And apparently, the new model for Starbucks here in Houston is a drive-through. And unless they can accommodate a drive-through, they will close down each of the Starbucks. So he was actually telling me about all the Starbucks that are within several miles of our home, and sadly enough was telling me, sadly for him, that was reporting which of the Starbucks would be closing and which of them would be remaining open or relocating. I thought that was pretty interesting because various times I have to ask him, where are the Starbucks, or where is the Starbucks closest to this location? And instead of just popping it in on my Google Maps or my MapQuest or something, I just call him and say, John, where's the Starbucks? Because he has them scoped out. And what's really kind of funny is we have a Starbucks app on our phones, and he uses his all the time. I forget to use mine all the time. But the funny thing is I'll get a bing on my phone, or whatever noise my iPhone makes, and I'll look over there and I'll just, oh, he must have just gotten coffee, because it notifies me whenever we have a charge on our Starbucks app. So it's kind of funny, I can keep track of him via the Starbucks. So all that to say that, that Starbucks, the assessment that you all have made on Starbucks and their modes of communication and the way that they're organized will be absolutely interesting to me. I can't wait to read through those. I read through a few of them earlier this evening and then decided to kind of put that on hold. Like many of you, probably, I've had a bit of a sinus headache today. So I thought, well, it's been an interesting day for me. Today is actually the 10th anniversary of the Terri Schiavo's death. Some of you are thinking, if you're young, you're thinking, what is Terri Schiavo? Who is Terri Schiavo? For those of you who might be a little bit older, you might remember Terri Schiavo. Terri Schiavo was the 41-year-old woman who actually was dehydrated and starved, basically. Nutrition and hydration were withheld from her. And on the 13th day, almost the 14th day, she died. It was a worldwide case, a right to die or right to life, although she died. So it was a right to die case, euthanasia case, that happened in Pinellas County, Florida. And I served as an editor in Florida for 12 years. Newspaper editor for a special interest publication. And so as such, I covered that case quite extensively. I was actually at the hospice, outside the hospice where all the reporters were. We had Fox News, CNN, NBC, ABC, most of the reporters whose names you would be familiar with, if I could just spout them off. For 13 days we camped out there in kind of like a tent city, as I described it in one of my articles about a year later, I reflected on the experience in a personal reflection. And it was a very, very moving experience. So today's been a very draining day as I've read through some of the coverage. Actually, a national news service that I also partnered with back then recapped some of my comments that I made about the coverage and included that in a news story today on the 10th anniversary. And so somebody alerted me to that earlier today, and it got me thinking and kind of going back through. Really ties into some of what we've been talking about in this class as far as how news organizations operate and present their branding and present information, how the ethics and how the ethics play into that, ethics of any organization, especially news, and how they report things. And that was a time that some of the things that were being reported from there were so unbelievable that I actually had colleagues in the field who would call or show up. Actually had a friend from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that showed up and said, hey, my editor sent me down here because your reporting is so different from some of the mainstream reporting that we thought we needed to come down here because, and actually some of the reporting that's coming out now, she said, is so different than the reporting that's been coming out for a number of years. And so we just wanted to get a better understanding of this whole Terri Schiavo case. So it's just been an interesting day as far as that's concerned. And at the same time, oh my goodness, we've been covering this Beach Reach, Panama City spring break. Some of you may have heard about this. Did make national news. There was a shooting late Friday night, early Saturday morning. 7 students down at Panama City Beach on spring break. And ironically, I think it was Friday night or Thursday night, there was a broadcast on Fox News about the fact that spring break's been getting a little bit raunchier every year. And so that had me kind of caught up because I had taken a group of students down there to participate in an outreach program back in 1996 in a pilot program. And so today I was actually kind of following up on that and writing a story about how, yes, well, on the one hand, there's violence breaking out, and local officials were meeting today to determine, well, yesterday, to determine whether or not Beach Reach was still, or not Beach Reach, spring break was still viable, and whether they had to put some restrictions on it. I had called the president of a college that takes students there every year to ask him whether that was going to still be a viable thing to do. And he said yes. And I released that story this morning. So anyway, so it's just been a busy day, and I didn't mean to take 7-8 minutes to tell you that. But those are stories that are happening all around us that involve organizations. The organization that's involved in Beach Reach is Lifeway Christian Resources of the Southern Baptist Convention. It involves organizations such as your school, which is a school, but it's also a very large organization that involves a lot of people. There's all kinds of information communications that happen, crisis communications that happen. In times like these, whatever message the president of the college sent out was going to be very important. And so in my role as a reporter, he was very careful in talking to me, but he also has a great amount of trust built up over a number of years with me. I'm not only a graduate of that school way back, but I also served as a trustee. I just rotated off the board this past year. So I have kind of an interesting and integral role with that school. I would not harm that school, and yet he knows that I'm a truthful reporter. So I did have that question, what are you going to do with this new information that spring break in Panama City is actually a very dangerous place, according to some, very violent. And his response back to me is, well, then all the more we need to have people there, because under supervision, of course, and with plenty of safety measures in place. But because it's becoming such a violent and unsafe place, the more that the presence of our students there doing something good and trying to help other students out, the more that that is necessary. So trying to get his message out in a way that's truthful to what he's saying is extremely important, and he realizes that. And so he also trusts me enough to know that I will do that. I'm not going to misquote him or partial quote him or get the message out in a way that is derogatory towards what he is saying. So there's a great amount of trust that is put forth in that. At the same time, I found it very curious that the comments that I made 10 years ago were put in about Terry Schiavo, again, organizationally, were put into a story. I'll say this carefully. The National News Service that I partner with is an extension of an organization that has changed somewhat. The Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention has somewhat changed its approach to some major issues. And maybe its approach, not its beliefs, but its approach. And that said, even the news organization has maybe changed its approach in some ways. So I was interested to see that my comments from 10 years ago were kind of sandwiched in between two commentators, one, the communication specialist that works for the ERLC, and one between kind of an ethicist who I don't have a lot of dealings with, who said some things about end-of-life issues that was not as hard and fast as or clearly articulated as they may have been 10 years ago. And the communication specialist from the ERLC, of course, is not the president of the ERLC, as maybe 10 years ago would have been quoted in a story of such magnitude about what then was considered an end-of-life issue and now was recast to be considered more of an issue about marriage, because the sanctity of marriage and the importance of marriage is something that is what? It is more politically expedient right now. That's something that's being talked about with same-sex marriage on the horizon and so forth, and the sanctity of marriage, that was kind of pushed to the forefront of that story. So that was very interesting to me organizationally, how they kind of reworked that whole issue now versus 10 years ago, what that story may have looked like. So that's a little bit of an illustration as how even with organizations and media, how that can kind of play out. Okay, so moving on from that, we are going to talk for a minute about your case study or your critical case assignment that I do not want you to get nervous about. I had it on here now. I scrolled right past through it. Your critical assignment. Some of you have had questions about this critical assignment, and you're like, what in the world? Okay, well, if you look at your syllabus, it has a few more words in your syllabus than the week 5 description, which I totally agree is a little bit sketchy, and I'm going to have to work to help develop that a little bit more, I think. But your critical assignment says organizational communication, case study, and presentation. So there's really 2 parts to what you'll be working on for the next 3 weeks. And you'll have a considerable amount of time. You'll have some time this week, but next week you'll have almost exclusively all of your assignment time will be to work on that case study. And then week 7, you'll only have one other short writing assignment along with this assignment. And then week 8 is exclusively, again, working on this assignment. So, in addition to reading and looking at some more PowerPoints, the assignment itself is to pick an organizational case study and write a 5 to 8 page research paper in APA format. So you'll pick an organizational case study and write a research paper and create a presentation. So you're picking a case study and writing the research paper. So the case study that you pick is, and now you notice my hesitation because all of a sudden I was prepared to tell you what that was, but I'm looking back at it and thinking, okay, I was pretty sure. Now I'm even hesitating, and I shouldn't be hesitating. You're picking a case study, meaning that this case study is your choice. You have the choice of creating that case study. For instance, when you wrote about the case study on Starbucks, Starbucks was already created for you. If you're going to pick a case study, you're going to pick an organization. You're going to say, I'm going to do a case study on California Baptist University. I'm going to do, and that's probably not a good one to do one on, because you might think that you're going to get a lot of information because you're right there and it's going to be easy, and so you might tend to slack or not get the kind of information that you need. So perhaps that's not a great one. But you're going to pick an organization. I'm thinking an LA sports team, the CBS News Bureau, any company that you can think of that you might be somewhat familiar with. And I always think that things that you're familiar with work much better than doing what I call cold research on the internet about something that you're not familiar with and you have no reaction to. I remember there was something early on, I'm trying to think of whether it was this class or not, but there was something that we were asked to react to that we were supposedly familiar with, and yet I think half the class chose to react, but they weren't actually familiar with what they chose to react to. So I think something that you're familiar with, I remember what it was now. It was an organization that you would want to work for, and yet many people chose an organization and used it as an opportunity to review an organization, but it really wasn't an organization they wanted to work for. So that's probably not a good idea. So you choose an organization and then you do a case study. You apply the principles that you've been learning. Not all of them. You choose some of them. I mean, you can choose maybe 3 or 4 of them. Writing a 5 to 8 page research paper simply means that you're already going to decide that you write, 3/4 of a page of an intro, 3/4 of a page of a conclusion. If it's a 5 to 8 page research paper, how did I figure that out? I'm not sure. Maybe a half of a page of an intro and half of a page of a conclusion at the most. But if you have half of a page of a conclusion, half of a page of an intro, then that's already a full page. And so then you figure you have 7 pages left. If you have a bibliography or a work cited, then that's a whole nother page. So that's already taking you down to 6 pages of a body of a paper. If you have 3 perspectives or 3 major sections on 3 different major approaches that you want to talk about, feminization of the workplace, gender identity or gender in the workplace, genderizing the workplace, a major topic or subtopics within a major topic, then you're already down to, if you want to divide that into 3 sections, you're already down to 2 pages per section, which is not a bad idea. And then 2 pages per section. Within those sections, you may want to have 2 subheadings. If it's a different perspective or a different theory, 2 different theories within each section. Do you see what I'm getting at? Make it easier on yourself. And as you begin to do your research about the organization, do all the research you can, and then look at everything that we've been studying, all the different models, all the different perspectives, all the different theories, and then decide how you want to approach it. So look at the organization, study it well, look at the different perspectives, study them well, merge the two, see what fits. Don't look at your perspectives and your theories and so forth first, and then say, okay, let me find an organization that fits into that. I would say definitely find an organization first, and then decide, okay, with my familiarity, and go back to your book, look through, and then begin to match up. Okay, how does this perspective apply to this organization? Some of the perspectives that you're going to look at this week, you're going to talk about 3 kinds of feminism. You're going to talk about risk management. You're going to talk about justice versus mercy, truth versus loyalty, individualism versus community, short-term versus long-term goals, different things like that. And those may have been things that have been sprinkled throughout. One of the couple of the videos that are this week are wonderful. They're diversity in the workplace. You're going to talk about gender, and you're going to talk about diversity in the workplace. And really watch those videos, because they're pretty hilarious on diversity in the workplace and racism in the workplace. And I'm not saying that racism is funny, but the video is hilarious, because the people that you think and that are being called racist, just watch the video. It's pretty funny. So, okay, I've gone on over 20 minutes, and I know most of you start nodding off after 20 minutes. I would be too, nodding off, and I think I am. My eyes are like sticks right now. Sticks. Okay. It's allergy time in Houston. There's pollen all over the front of the car. Okay, so I'm going to let you go, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Go ahead, email me, text me. I haven't had any text yet. I feel kind of neglected. I've had, 1 or 2 phone calls, but no texts. I do respond to texts. Usually my phone's sitting right up here on my handy-dandy desk. And while I'm trying to write news stories and figure things out and plan an April 25th wedding. The clock is ticking. Anyway, so have a great week. Let me know if I can help you. On that case study, yes, we talked about the paper. We did not talk about the project. Make these projects fun. Do one of those crazy posters where little circles come and, there's animated things. Those are wonderful. Oh, if you can do those videos that have those little animated figures, scrawling things on chalkboards, or even voice threads where you put a few of your main points out there, and then you elaborate on those main points. Do not take your whole paper and put it all in a PowerPoint and then just speak your paper out loud. Do not need to do that. Do not need to do that. If you do a PowerPoint, do some nice graphics or something with your main points, and then speak, talk, elaborate a little bit, tell a story that applies to that main point. That's how you do that. Get that across. Make it a little bit interesting. Okay? So, do that. Do a poster. Do a video. Do what I'm doing. Sit in front of a camera. Prop your laptop up. Put it up on a couple of books. Get it up above there. And do a YouTube. And explain something that you learned, or about your paper, your project. Take it seriously. But go ahead and do something like that. Make it interesting. This is your final project. It's your critical project. It's the one that you'll have the most points from. Well, not necessarily. It's the one that must be passed at an acceptable rate. That's what the syllabus says. I was just looking at it. So I wish you well, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help you. Good night.